Genie Bostrom arrived to Mooseheart on April 15th, 1993, when she was just 10 years old. She came with her older brother, John, and from the time they set foot on campus, the two of them looked out for each other. When their mother died a short time later, they now had not only each other, but their Mooseheart family looking out for them. While at Mooseheart, Genie excelled both academically and athletically. She graduated third in her class and participated in volleyball, basketball, and track during her high school career. She was a leader both in the classroom as well as on the court. Genie has an infectious laugh and a huge heart for others. At the young age of 15, she was selected to participate in the Youth Conservation Corps, which was not only an opportunity of a lifetime for a young girl, but ended up setting the path she is on today. Genie graduated from Mooseheart in 2001 and is now the Director of Strategic Partnerships at a national nonprofit whose mission is to empower individuals to positively impact the lives, communities, and the environment. Previous to this position, Genie spent 4 years in Washington, D.C., where she helped start and staff the first cabinet level of office dedicated to youth engagement and partnerships at the U.S. Department of the Interior. Previous to that position, she was the director of the Youth Conservation Corps program at Yellowstone National Park, a program that the Moose has had a long history with and have fully funded for over 20 years. To think, it all began asking her if she would go to work at Yellowstone for a summer. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to class of 2001 graduate, Ms. Genie Bostrom.
Good evening, men and women of the Moose. First, I want to say how honored I am to be addressing you this evening, though honor doesn't seem to have enough impact to express how I feel. I hope that in the next few minutes, I can express how much the Moose has meant to me and how I would not be the person I am today without everything that the Moose is and does. Last week, I was interviewed for an article in the Moose magazine. I was asked how I would advise people to follow their passion, as I have been very lucky to find work doing what I'm passionate about. But I realized that I've never actually followed my passion. Rather, I've followed my gratitude. And that has led me to a life filled with passion every day. What I mean by following my gratitude is that each step in my life since I left Mooseheart has been an effort to give back on the opportunities that I've been afforded. I walk each day in gratitude for everything, and especially for everything that the Moose has done for me. I personally feel a special bond with the Moose because I have close ties to another former Moose program as well, the Yellowstone Youth Conservation Corps. While it was Mooseheart that gave me a home that I needed and shaped me in my formative years, it was that stability in combination with my experiences in the Conservation Corps that gave me the confidence, the insight, and the platform from which to launch. I want to take this opportunity to tell all of you how important, no vital, the Moose is, how important all of you are to me personally. To express this, I could go into detail how important Mooseheart was to me or how important the Conservation Corps program has been, but rather I want to take this time to tell you about just one Moose member. Evelyn Payne from Front Royal, Virginia Moose started writing to me when I was 11 years old. It was my first year living at Mooseheart. You see, I'd been born to a single mother, and although she loved my brother and I dearly, she did not have the capacity to fully care for us. But I don't want to discredit the power of love here. My mother's love is what carried us. Though she was sick and we were poor, I never felt it. Though we hopped from place to place, school to school, not knowing where we were going to live or get our next meal, I felt stability in our mother's love. My mother must have known that she didn't have much longer to live, or she feared that we might be taken from her by Children and Family Services. Either way, she made the decision to give up custody and place us in a home that provided that physical stability that had been missing. It was the ultimate act of a mother's love, giving us up so that we might live better lives. She sent us to Mooseheart. She passed away a year later, at the same time that Mrs. Evelyn from Front Royal began her letters. Front Royal had been the lodge that sponsored mine and my brother's admission into Mooseheart. And as we were the only youth that the Front Royal Lodge ever sponsored, I was fortunate to be the recipient of many, many letters from the Lodge's secretary at the time, Mrs. Evelyn Payne. She would write to me about the most mundane things, and her letters took such a conversational tone. She would write out things like, "Oh, the tea kettle is boiling, hold on." And then the next line, "I'm back," as if I would have known in reading this letter that she had briefly walked away from it. Even in my adolescence, I loved her letters and replied to every one. She was my pen pal until I graduated high school and left Mooseheart. In my early 20s, I tended to move around a lot, as people in their 20s often do. I was spending every summer working in Yellowstone with the Conservation Corps and spending my winters in college and then in Chicago and Portland and California, and you get the picture. As my addresses were inconsistent, I, without meaning to, lost touch with Evelyn. I thought of her every now and then, but was leading a new life and finding myself, as cliche as that is. As the years added up, my interest in re-engaging with the Moose grew stronger, and I felt an even stronger pull to deliberately follow my gratitude. In 2009, after almost 10 years of seasonally returning to Yellowstone, I took a job with the U.S. Department of Interior in Washington, D.C. Prior to this, I had never really spent any time on the East Coast at all and had little understanding of the geography of the Mid-Atlantics. I figured that Front Royal, Virginia had to be within a day's drive from D.C. and resolved to, at some point, seek out my sponsoring lodge when the time was right. Once we were settled in the nation's capital, one of the first weekends that my boyfriend and I had free, we decided to go camping in Shenandoah National Park. I had heard from coworkers how relatively close it was and that it was an easy drive, a straight shot out Route 66. We left about 3 hours later than we had planned, so we didn't look at a map, and we planned to drive until we saw signs for Shenandoah. On the drive, it started raining heavily. It was raining so hard that I had to pull off the highway at the closest exit. We pulled into a gas station and waited till the rain died down. At the gas station, we saw signs telling us how many miles to Shenandoah. We followed the signs. We passed a sign letting us know we had just entered Front Royal, Virginia. It was so out of context that I was trying to piece together in my head why Front Royal sounded so recognizable to me, when my boyfriend absent-mindedly said, "Oh, look, there's a moose lodge." And it hit me, and I screamed, "That's my sponsoring lodge!" My boyfriend, a little startled by my outburst, pulled over and asked if we should check it out. I said yes, but thinking that it would probably be empty. It was 6:30 p.m. on a Friday evening, after all. I thought that I might just leave a note. Then as we crested a little hill, pulling into the lodge, we saw that the parking lot in back was packed indeed. "Well, somebody's here," my boyfriend said. As we parked and walked towards the lodge, I thought to myself, who do I ask for? What do I say? How likely is it that they will even remember who I am or care? This happened to be an evening when the Moose Lodge was hosting one of the area's most popular bands, so the place was packed. As I showed my Moose membership card at the entrance, I leaned over to tell the woman checking the card that Front Royal was my sponsoring lodge, that I was from Mooseheart. She said, "Oh, just check with those ladies behind me." Behind her were 3 of the most vibrant women I've ever had the benefit of knowing. I leaned down to the woman in the middle and explained myself again. I said I was from Mooseheart and that Front Royal was my sponsoring lodge. She asked me my name, and when I replied, Genie Bostrom, she grasped my hands in hers and shouted, "It's the Bostrom girl, it's the Bostrom girl." And when she told me her name, I recognized her immediately as my long-lost pen pal. My boyfriend watched in utter shock as the magic of the scene unfolded. That evening was one of the most amazing nights of my entire life, as the copious love that was poured into me that evening by the entirety of the Front Royal Moose still astounds me. Not only did they remember me, hundreds of people came up to me telling me how proud they were of me, telling Matt, my boyfriend, that he better be taking care of their girl. They still considered me their girl. They still had pictures of adolescent me hanging up in the lodge. To say it was surreal would be an understatement. That evening, one of the original 3 women who I had met interrupted the very popular band and told them to take 5, while she ushered me in front of a microphone. That evening, I cried in appreciation to the wonderful people filling that lodge. That evening, I reacquainted myself with a dear friend, Evelyn. 10 months ago, my dear friend Evelyn passed on from this world. It wasn't just the letters, of course. It was the amazing love that Evelyn radiated that made me feel close to her. At the same time, it wasn't just the love that she radiated, it was the love that she spoke and she acted out every day. Evelyn told me every time that I spoke to her how much she loved me and how proud she was of me. This woman, who I'd never met in person until a happened chance upon a moose lodge 5 years ago, expressed a love for me that I couldn't imagine and that I returned in kind. She lived a life full of love, and I never got to tell her how much her love meant to me. I don't know that in a lifetime I could express my appreciation for everything that she was for me, and how in the simplest ways she comforted, inspired, and enlivened me. Evelyn embodied the essence of living, and now that essence lives on in those that she loved. And how blessed am I to be one of those. She meant so much to me, and though I never told her outright, the best way I can express that is by living her legacy. I know that there are some members of Front Royal Moose with us here today, and any of them will tell you that the Moose was everything to Evelyn. She was Moose through and through, and so by living her legacy, I'm really living the legacy of the Moose, a life of service to others, following my gratitude. Thank you.
Didn't she do great?